Morning everybody, Dan here. Got the old Plough out today, gonna do a little bit of work on it. Now we're finished up, we're using it, might just get ahead and fix up a couple of hubs that aren't spinning properly. If you watched any of the Plough videos, you may notice a couple of the discs weren't spinning. It's because the bearings are most likely full of crap because the seals are so old. So one of them was this one here. You can see that like binds up pretty quick, whereas that just keeps spinning. So what I'm going to do is pull this one off, and there's another one up the back a bit further. Pull this off, pull the disc off, pull the hub off, and suss the bearing out. And you know, we have a heap of bearings for it, so probably just chuck a couple of new ones in there. I don't think we have any seals for it because it's so old we can't get seals for it anymore. They don't make them anymore. So hopefully I can save the seal. It's not a big drama, but hopefully I can save that. So yeah, I'll rip this hub apart and get the bearings out, and we'll have a bit of a look, see what's going on. Okay, so we've got the disc off, so now we'll give this a little clean up. There's a cap, so I have to get that out. We'll probably have to give it a bit of a hammer with a screwdriver to pop it out because it'll be rusted in there. But that's alright, we'll glue it up when we put it back on so no dirt goes in there. Oh, look at that grease in there. Pretty much just dirt. Maybe some grease. Alright, cap's off. And that's why you're binding up. Look at how much dirt's got in there. Water and dirt, it's rusted up. You can just hear how rubbish that is. So we'll pull that cap off at the end there on those two bolts and then pull the bearing out. So where these two bolts are on this end washer for the bearing, there's a retaining bit of metal that you bend over to hold the bolts on there. So we bent them over first so I can get these bolts undone. Just stops the bolts from coming loose. So there's the end washer there, pulled off. That retains the bearing with the bolts. And we'll slip this off. Come off pretty easy, which is nice. There's the bearing of that. That's why that there's so much dirt and rust in it. Even the bearing cage there is bent in. Not sure how that's happened, but doesn't particularly matter. Just put new bearings in it. You can just feel how like ground up that is. So that bearing's knackered. Yeah, it's probably the same for this one here, which will probably be a bit tougher to get off because it'll be pressed on that It won't be pressed on, but it'll be on pretty tight on the little stub axle. So I'll have to probably hammer and chisel that off. Got it off. Pretty much knackered, but that's alright, it's about a anyway. So what I'll do now is I'll give the stub axle there a little bit of a clean up. Probably have to put a bit of emery paper over it. That hub seal there, we're going to have to reuse it. It should be, it's not really okay, but if you haven't got an on, there's not a great deal I can really do about it. We'll just have to do. Put enough grease in there, hopefully the grease will spew out behind it and keep it. Have a lot of the dirt out maybe, seal up some of those gaps. Because the inner ring there still seems like it's sealing on the actual hub. It's just the outer rings that are a bit more brittle and chewed up from over the years. Because that's a genuine international number there, and they've got the little marking on it. There's no way we can get parts for that. We can't. I don't think. If anybody knows where you can get them out there, let me know. Alright, so that's all nice and clean. A little bit of wear. That bearing's been running on there. That's not a big problem because it turns so slow. It's not like can't really do a lot of damage. So that's going to be pretty good to go now. We'll give that a grease up before we put it all back together. Okay, so I've matched up 2 new bearings and their respective cups. Matched up the numbers out of our big collection of Plough bearings. So what I'll do now is I'll knock the old cups out of the hub here, knock the new ones in, and we'll put a bit of grease in there. And I actually did find some hub seals. I forgot when we replaced some a couple of years back, we got these new replacements for it. So I'll try and pop off one of those the old seal and see if this one's gonna hopefully do it. I'm pretty sure we used them, so see how that goes. So I'll knock out the caps now and we'll continue on. Alright, so I just went out and just pulled the old seal off the Plough there. There's the old one. There's the international logo, genuine part. Have a look how rusty the metal part of the seal is, completely knackered. It's crazy. I suppose it's been out in the paddock, a lot of rain, a lot of dirt over the years. So I went in with the new one. It's very different. Obviously, doesn't seal like that. It's a very old style seal. Did the job obviously, but they've changed their ways. So this is just I don't know, not a genuine seal obviously. It's just one that is the same size pretty much. Yeah, went out and just made sure that they would sit over the stub axle. You see there, that loop there, that's the inner race of that old seal. So I'll need to remove that before I can get that one in there. Hopefully this will fit nice and snug. If it doesn't, I'll have to use some sort of sealing glue or something or other to lock her in. But we'll get these bearing cups out first, and well, actually no, I'll take this out first and then I'll take the bearing cups out. So I'll do that now. That's easy enough. Good way of getting old seals in, just crush them and pop them out. They'll reduce the pressure. So that is now rubbish. So now I can knock these cups out. So with a brass punch, there's a little groove in the hubs, 3 positions. And that gives you a nice, trying to get it up here, don't know if you can see it or not, but just there, there and there, give you a nice spot to hit on the cup. That should knock out nice and easily. So I'll knock that one out now. Just going to hit around all 3 spots. Get the hub out, the cap out nice and easily. Oops. Out. There we go, the old one. And we'll flip the hub over, pull the second one out. At least the hub's in good nick by the looks of it. So let's do the same again. Hitting on the bench. Just pop this over like that. There we go. That's our second one. Alright, here's the old cups. Bit of pitting in there where the water and whatnot's sat, metal's chewed into it. So what I'll do now is I'll give this hub a good clean, get all the old grease out. Not there's much grease, it's more just dirt. Get all that out, make sure we get any dirt and metal out because that's a bearing's worst enemy. You always want to make sure your hub is completely spotless when you're chucking new bearings in, especially when you're putting the cups in. You don't want any dirt to get caught up in the where they sit down in the bottom of the hub there, because they can mean that your bearing cup's not all the way in and it'll sit on a funny angle, and that'll, in a car or truck or in a with a bearing that's moving at high speeds, that can cause a hot spot and that can cause your bearing to wear unevenly and then get hot, and then of course it'll get damaged. So always want to make sure it's nice and clean when putting in new bearings and cups. So we've put the new bearings in there, bearing cup, sorry. Yeah, they're all ready to go. Got the seal here. As you can see, she's a little bit loose. I think that's the problem we had last time. It spins in there like that, it should be solid and spin on the axle. So I'll have to run a bit of sealant across there to help that grip on the hub and not spin in the hub. But that'll be okay. So what I'll do is now I'll repack the new bearings with grease, put a heap of grease in the hub, make sure there's plenty in there, and then we'll be able to reassemble that back on the plough, and we'll be able to do the second one of these that's also binding up, and we'll be happy days. So I'll crack on now. Alright, got my bearings packed full of grease, put the outer one in obviously. I'll give that a bit of a wipe up there around the edge of the hub, and we'll slip that seal in. I'll put a bit of 3-bond or something on there to hold that in, I think. And then I'll install that back on the stub axle on the plough, and we'll get that all nice and ready to go, and then we'll move on to the next one. Right, what I've done is I put that seal in with a heap of 3-bond. It's quite a lot. It looks a bit messy, but that should hopefully seal that seal in there and stop it spinning. If we look at the old one here, you can see how thick that is now. That was because it takes up so much space in that hub. That seal sits down very deep. So it should still work the same principle, but it just sits down there a bit deeper. So I put a heap of 3-bond in there to stop any dirt getting around into that seal. Hopefully that'll stick in there. As I said, it doesn't spin very fast, so can't cause a lot of damage, but it'd been just nice to know that the dirt isn't getting into that hub. Alright, so now that's all ready to go back onto the stub axle, we'll slip that on, put the other bearing on, we'll tension, we won't tension because I haven't got a tension for it, but we'll just nip up the bolts on that retaining plate, and that'll bring the bearing in, and that'll be nice. We'll spin it up and make sure it's all nice and free, and then it's going to spin better than what it was, and then I'll be right to move on to the next hub. Okay, so I'm ready to put the hub on. I changed what I wanted to do. I've decided to sit another one of those seals on top of the other seal, so it'll fill out the entire thing, and then it's got double the amount of sealing protection, so that'll be like that. So hopefully that won't let any dirt in there. So now we're ready to put this hub on. That should fit on there. This one sort of slops around, not too concerned. I've glued it in as well. Should be okay. It's more likely this one will come out than anything else, but hopefully it'll sit in there nicely. So I'll slip the hub on. What I've done is I've greased that up nicely, the stub axle there, and it's ready to go on. Always want to put a bit of grease on the stub axle, have it slip on, and there's just extra grease in there for keeping that bearing lubed. So now we'll just slip it on and get this in there like that.
Got to be a bit light for that one there, but try that quick metal.
Right, we just have to give that a tap on to get it all the way in. Already that. There we go. See, it looked like it was popping out a bit. Now we'll grab that washer that retains the retainer really that holds the bearing in. I'll give it a clean before I put it back in, obviously. So what I'll do now is get the bolt with a little bend over thing on it. I'll put that in there. Thing that's in the hole there. The bearing might not be in far enough to let that grab. Grab the second bolt. Where's that? There we go. Grab a spanner out, we'll do these bolts up. This, you won't be able to see it on the camera, but I can see it. As I'm doing that up, the bearing's going in a bit further, so you're just grabbing a little bit on the stub axle there. It's no problem. You can knock it in with a punch also. It's a good way of knocking those bearings all the way on. You just slip a punch down the guts of the hub. Try not to damage the stub axle, and you can knock that bearing on as far as you need to knock it on. So we'll do these bolts up now nice and tight, doing them up evenly. And then we get that all the way on there and I'm happy with it, we'll spin it up and check how free the hub is. That's up as far as that'll go. I'll give it a spin around, get all that grease moving. It's too tight there at the moment, I know, but just give it a spin, make sure everything loosens up a bit. We'll see these. Alright, so we'll move these bolts back a little bit. And that'll give us free play in the bearing now. That's a bit looser. Not quite loose enough though. Back it off again. Bring them just up to being nipped up there. A bit better. Back it off again. Look at that. That's how I want it, just about there, so I'll just nip them up. Okay, so what I've done is when you're doing up a bearing, with this it's got this retaining washer, and the tightness of these two bolts determines how tight your bearing's going to be, because it pushes that retaining washer in, which squeezes the bearings into the cups. Same principle as just having a nut on there with a washer. They use this one, which is a good way also, because there's no threads that can get damaged other than these bolts, which aren't going to get damaged because they're in there. So what you do is, when you get it all nice and tight, as you would have seen, I was spinning the hub around, and then I was tightening these up to get the hub all the way on, and then it was too tight. So what you do is then you back them off, and that relieves the pressure on those two bearings, and then it'll become looser. So that's pretty loose there. So then what you want to do is just, see how loose that is there. You just want to bring that up till you feel it go a little bit firm. Bring that one up too, it's a little bit firm there. And then check how free it spins. That's pretty good. It'll spin a lot quicker obviously with the disc on there, a lot more throw out obviously. Now I'm happy with that, that's how I want it. I can't feel any like knocking in there, so that's a good sign. So now that you've got them done up like that, we bend our our little locking tabs over, which are in each corner of the bolts there, and what that'll do is that'll bend over on the bolts, stop them from turning, which means your bearing can't come loose, and it can't, theoretically can't go any tighter from the bolts going in tight, but it can from dirt and shit getting in there. So we'll knock them over like that. That bolt's completely locked on there now because of those tabs, so we'll do the same to the bottom one. Oops. They're both locked on there now, so those bolts aren't going anywhere, which in theory means that is the bearing. So you can see there I've knocked over the little tabs onto both bolts, and two on the bottom, and that's ready to go now. So what I'll do is I'll pack a bit more grease in around that gap there. I'll have to give this cap a bit of a clean up and fix that little bit of a knock in there where I punched it out. I'll whack a heap of 3 bond around that and that'll seal in there nicely. So I'll do that, and then yeah, this hull will be finished. Put the disc back on. Be right to do the second one. Alright, got the first one done. Much better than what it was before. Spins around a lot more freely. So that one's done. Second hub's rebuilt. That's ready to go back on the plough. Cause of failure. Have a look at the old seal. Completely knackered. Absolutely wrecked. Compared with the other old seal, which is still reasonably intact, even though she's pretty knackered. Yep, that let a heap of dirt into the back bearing and cooked her. So alright, I'll whack this one back on and we'll be done. Alright, got that second disc done. That's all good now. Yeah, so that's all the work I'm going to do on the plough today. Both those bearings are sorted, so they should spin nice and freely now. Next time we're ploughing, I think Dad's have decided he's going to replace a couple of worn pins on it. So he's going to do that. So yeah, and thanks for watching. Hope you learned a little bit about bearings and put them in and whatnot. So yeah, thanks for watching. See you in the next one.